This episode of Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico is sponsored by the Moonbeam Cafe, located at 636 Allegheny River Boulevard in Oakmont, PA, just outside of the city limits of Pittsburgh, PA. Moonbeam Cafe is a traditional Roman-style cafe, famous for their delectable biscottis and espresso-based drinks. Moonbeam strives to handcraft their drinks with only the highest quality ingredients, and doing so with a big smile on their faces. And if you've seen the boss Nina smile, you know it doesn't get much better than that. The main mission of the Moonbeam Cafe is not only to create the best coffee in Pittsburgh, but to spread as much kindness as possible. One of the customers at the Moonbeam once said, "This is the only place in the city that serves a sign of kindness with every cup." And that really sums up the Moonbeam Cafe. Please follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Moonbeam Cafe to get a glimpse of just what they do every day. Stay magical, stay caffeinated at the Moonbeam Cafe. This week, we start things off with the song Darkest Days from the band Aloud.
Be free of your past. You've done nothing wrong. Freedom is as scarce as the day is long. Stand up tall. Stand up straight. You've got nothing to fear. No business being ashamed of your love, love, love. Brother, we all need love to get us through the darkest days to come. Your memories will never fade. A loss is just a debt that's left unpaid. Soon one day it'll all be gone. It's a physical world and a race against time never won. Except for love, love, love. Sister, we all need love to get us through the darkest days to come. Without love, 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 where would we be, my love? Unarmed against the darkest days to come. Love, 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 honey, we all need love to get us through the darkest days to come. Without love, 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 where would we be, my love? Unarmed against the darkest days to come. Are these days the darkest days to come?
That was beautiful. That was the band Aloud from their fabulous third album, Exile, which just recently turned 10 years old a few weeks ago. Where has all the time gone? I've known Henry and Jen since they moved to Boston from their working-class Cuban neighborhood in Miami back around, I believe it was 2003. We were all hanging out at the Abbey Lounge down the road in Inman Square, drinking some brews and having a good time back then. Now they live out in L.A. and have been making quite a name for themselves as an L.A. band. They did come back to the area to record their most recent album, Sprezzatura, with Benny Grotto over at Mad Oak Studios. I have a lot of respect for Aloud and their continued perseverance to bring outstanding tunes to their fan base. You could follow them on their website, allthingsaloud.com, and you can reach them at aloud@allthingsaloud.com. Great people, great band. It's been a crazy few days for me. I'm going to sum it up. It all kind of hit a boiling point, you could say, yesterday when our guest schedule for today, Tracy Garrity, had to cancel because she's ill. Get well soon, Tracy. Less than 24 hours before the show. But we were able to call and get a last-minute guest who saved the day, returning to the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast, Duncan Wilder-Johnson.
Woo! All right!
Known as a musician, photographer, artist, designer, and film producer, and corrector of Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico host, because if I make a mistake, he'll correct me. Most recently, Duncan and I, and Nick actually, all got to work together on the Jimmy D'Angelo picture frame CD, which is a tribute to the late Worcester legend who passed away 2 years ago. Duncan came up with a great idea for the cover and made us all proud. So, Duncan, how have you survived the last 7 months of this pandemic? You've been able to do some work pretty much.
Okay, how do I answer this? I maintaining, day at a time, like that kind of thing, is definitely pretty rough in the beginning, especially financially. But then I started to get some work because of the pandemic. So there's a lot of people doing video and doing Zoom, and then they need me to kind of clean up their videos and archive them and stuff like that. So that's one of the many little gigs I have. And and then I've been doing, I've been shooting with a mask on, living off hand sanitizer.
Stocked up on toilet paper.
For the most part, yeah. And, got some assistance from here and there, which helped. That assistance from the United States government helped me upgrade a lot of my gear, which it desperately needed. So
that's good.
So that's a really positive thing, and it's allowing me to experiment with some new stuff like 360-degree photography. And doing a lot of archiving. I just archived a lot of work from my family. So I got pictures of my grandfather in World War II in the Philippines, and he's super skinny, and
nice.
He writes stuff on the back. He passed away in '86, so it's kind of a cool thing to have. And a lot of pictures of my mom as a teenager at the beach and stuff. So that was really cool. And then
I love old black and white photography.
Yeah.
I have my father's photos from the Korean War.
Really?
Yeah, I've matted a few of them on canvas. I've copied, matted, how you do that whole scene, and I made a bunch and gave them to my family. They love stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, photography does a wonderful thing with time. So, and then I got a bunch of stuff out of my storage space, and I'm slowly archiving all my own photos and flyers. And
what about music?
I'm going, oh my God, I forgot about that show.
Were you able to? I mean, I know you said you kept busy.
I've written a lot of riffs.
So what about, I want to hear about your project you're working on right now at New Alliance, but I wanted to ask you
Yeah, we're still in the midst of it.
I wanted to ask you something else first. Were you able to do any videos or things that were music related, or was this other projects?
I did all the Cortez videos that are coming out right now.
Oh, cool.
I'm especially proud of the one that's all special effecty and they all the guys in the band are all black and white and contrasty, as if they're Xerox. That was my idea. And then behind them is this red, smoky, globy thing that kind of undulates around them.
Cortez is a Boston-based band for people.
Boston stoner rock band.
Scott's in Cortez, right? Yeah, I know Scott.
Scott O'Dowd, who is also known as Scotty Montropolis from Bastard Squad. I love
and
Bastard
he was in
Squad.
Static, too, which was before they became my favorite American hero, whatever the name of that band was.
Yeah.
But
favorite Atomic Hero.
Yeah, they had the song California on the Twisted Rico class of 98, so I know Scott from that. And he's a really good guy.
Fast Acting Fuses, he was in that band.
Yeah, he hung around at the Linwood a lot when I was booking the place around 98, 99, the old Linwood bar, which became church.
He played there
I don't
a
know
lot.
if it's even there anymore. Is that place even there anymore?
I haven't been to the neighborhood in a while.
It's in the Fenway part of Boston for people that aren't familiar with the area. So you were able to keep your business going. That's a good thing. You know what I want to ask you? Because this is a really interesting question. I want to get your perspective. Where do you see everything going in the music business now that we're at this point? I mean, we obviously have a few more months or maybe longer because things are starting to get weird again. But what's going to happen in your opinion? Is live music going to come back? I mean, what's the future? I mean, what do you think? You've been around doing this for 20 years. So you've been in bands and you've toured as a spoken word guy. You've done it all. Is the live thing going to come back?
Yeah, it's going to come back. You can't kill rock and roll. I mean, there's going to be kids in basements playing shows. That will happen. Whether it's legal or not is another story. But you can't. It's impossible. Human beings are, I've learned, especially from this thing, human beings are incredibly social creatures, and they will need to congregate, and they will need to be around live music and film and art and hanging out and coffee shops and bars, and that's just, backyard parties, whatever. Like that will definitely happen. What it will look like as far as the legal live music industry, I don't know. So I'm very worried about places going out of business and not having places to play. And Boston has been
hit hard,
fraught with, for the past 15 years or so, I'd say Boston is fraught with not enough small clubs. Too many bands, not enough small clubs to meet the demand. And one of the coolest things, even though it's completely illegal, is a lot during like the 2000s, into say probably 2012 or so, there was a lot of basement shows. And there's a documentary coming out about that time in the Boston. It's called Boston Basement Brigade.
Really? Who's putting that out?
My man Troy from Bricks and Mortar. He was also in Raises in the Night.
Right.
Yeah. It's got interviews and stuff in it, and it looks cool. I've only seen the trailer.
Where were some of these basement shows happening?
Well, a lot of Alston, JP,
Brighton, Rock City, of course.
Some weird warehouse space. Ask a Punk. I mean, and cops came down on it, and I and they came down on it because it might be unsafe. However, I would argue that it's just same as it ever was, man. I mean, there's always rock bands playing in basements. I think there always will be. Maybe at some point it won't be rock music; it'll be some other kind of music. But you can't kill people making music.
You think there's any chance,
or being self-expressed in any way?
You think there's any chance by the spring that some of the clubs that we know about in Boston will actually be having live shows again?
It depends on the curve. Massachusetts was doing awesome in May and June, and now we're
college.
Last I saw, we were on the cusp between medium and high risk.
How much of this has to do with the amount of colleges in the area? In your opinion?
I think it's probably that has something to do with it. I think also it has to do with people being going stir crazy, getting cabin fever, and people not wanting to, people want to hang out,
I mean, I went 2 months without doing a pod. Well, I was doing them at home on my MacBook. I did a few episodes, but in June it was so great to be able to come back to New Alliance and do shows with Herb down the hall.
Yeah.
And, and I haven't missed a week since then. Now working with Nick.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep going. I mean, I got Lee Harrington from The Hoods coming down
That's
here
exciting.
next week. And, Al Quint from Suburban Voice.
That's also
and,
exciting.
Yeah, Glenn Stilfen wants to come in.
He's great, too.
Yeah, bass player.
All-star cast on your podcast,
Well,
man.
I want to get Glenn in here because I want to talk about Another Wasted Night, which is one of the
Gangrene?
best records made to
He's
ever
got so
come
many
out of
stories
Boston.
from that time.
Yeah.
He was a young kid on
Yeah.
tour. He was like 14 or something.
I don't know if I told you
And
this,
his older
but
his mom
Chuck.
let him go because of the older brother was
Chuck.
the guitar player.
They slept on the floor in my house for about 2 weeks. The Outlets and Gangrene were in California together,
Yeah.
and they shared Walter Gustafson, the drummer.
Yeah.
So they were alternating doing shows all over the West Coast. And my house, where I was living at the time in Torrance,
Was headquarters.
right down the street from Enigma, because the Outlets were on Restless Enigma. They all crashed at my place. The Stilfens were awfully quiet during that time, and we joke about that a lot because I got to know them better actually when Mallet Head came out because I saw
I don't know that music, but
it's more of a straightforward hard rock band, but they played at CBGB's, and Glenn actually got up to the mic. We're going to play one for Steve Ricardo, and they played You're Mine by Dag Nasty. They covered
wow.
It was really cool. But Glenn's going to do the show, and a bunch of other people too. So
that's exciting.
So if it wasn't for this show, man, I would be losing my mind. So I know exactly what you're saying. And, I know the same goes for like Nick and Ethan and Alvin and everyone around here. We're trying to like do what we do and keep it going. But under these very limited circumstances.
Well, I mean, we're just being smart about it. We're trucking along. Everyone's wearing a mask in the gallery, hand sanitizer.
I should have mentioned that Duncan actually has an office right down the hall from here, so in the New Alliance building in beautiful Union Square, Somerville, Mass.
Right on.
So I told Duncan if he came on the show, we could spend some time talking about one of his favorite bands, Black Flag. But before we talk about Black Flag and some other cool punk rock stuff, I want to play a song from Duncan's band, Destruct-A-thon. This one's called Daisy Cutter. Destruct-A-thon. That was the song Daisy Cutter from the album 2001 to 2004, featuring our guest today, Duncan Wilder-Johnson. Why don't you tell our listeners who played on that record, who recorded it? Give us all the background on that track.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. So first of all, well, it's definitely me and Michelle Morgan. We were always in Destruct-A-thon. I think that was written with Sean Linehan on bass and his brother Nate Linehan on drums. Nate and I kind of started the band, but I think it was recorded with Eric O'Brien on drums. I'm not positive. We had 3 different drummers. So we had Nate Linehan, we had Eric O'Brien, who used to be in Honky Ball, and Nate Linehan used to be in AC.
Honky Ball.
And we had Eamon Pacheco at one point too. He used to play in Kill Grip. And then I did some other stuff with Eamon too. I did Kill It All Away.
Who recorded it?
Knife. I think that's Nick and Mark. Does that sound right, Nick? I don't know.
Nick and Mark Schleicher recorded that?
I think
that was Nick in my headset. I don't think you could hear that, people. But Nick's like, yeah, of course I recorded that. It was fucking awesome, wasn't it?
That's old. Actually. That's recorded at 1312.
Nice.
The old New Alliance and Fenway.
I'm glad you remembered that Nick and Mr. Schleicher did that. Which two of them together recorded my theme song. I say that every week. By the way.
Cool.
The Charm's So Pretty.
Oh yeah, right. So yeah, that's also like that same time. Yeah,
that was 2004 for them. I think you might have been a little earlier. Wow, I didn't realize you were hanging around down there at that time.
Yeah, 2000 to 2003 is when I worked at Wonder Drug with Ken Smar.
I can see that office down I'm thinking of the one actually in Cambridge. Where was the one in New Alliance located in Boston?
So Ken had 2 spaces. He had a little like a warehouse closet space. We put all the discs in. And then
was that the same floor as Curve of the Earth?
No, it was on like that sort of like mezzanine floor. You know how you walk in the back door, you go up the stairs, you go up the ramp.
Yeah.
You go around, you go by the road saw room, you take a right on the third floor on the left. That was Ken's office, the Wonder Drug office. And then right next to it was Gail's dark room and photo studio.
Yes, I remember that. 3.5 Girls had room number 10. I know that because I was paying the rent for a while down there. That was on the same floor as Roadsaw, I think. There were always good parties.
That's just down the ramp.
Yeah, there were good parties there all the time when I was young and used to be able to party like a madman in the New Alliance building. After shows, you'd go there at 2 a.m. and there'd be all these people hanging around partying, get some beer from the Linwood, bring it over, the good old days.
There you go.
Well, good. That sounded amazing.
Oh, and the song is about a bomb called The Daisy Cutter.
Oh.
And I think that Nate Linehan is the one who came up with the idea for the song. And then I wrote the words. And then I think either Michelle or Mark and Nick thought of the idea with the backing vocals with Michelle.
Nick probably did.
That makes sense.
Nick just told us something that no one else could hear, but
Oh, no one else can hear that? Okay.
I don't think so, unless he has a mic out there.
Right.
That might be a good idea. I think we should get Nick a mic. But, okay, so you and Michelle are still working together. Why don't you tell us where you're at right now with your new project?
We're in the midst of mixing 6 songs, and that's kind of all we've been doing. I mean, the pandemic pretty much put the brakes on us work,
is it still
being in the same room?
Destruct-A-thon?
No, we're still kind of working on the name thing.
But you played me some of the stuff, and I think it's awesome, man.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Ethan recorded it, right? Ethan DeSalt.
It's a little bit more. It's not as like we're trying to be thrashy and heavy and hard and metal, and it's a little bit. I mean, it's definitely heavy. There's distorted guitars and stuff like that, and I still yell and scream to a certain degree, but it's a little bit more like, let's write real songs. Let's write things that have catchy choruses.
You two together, you and Michelle, you guys make a good pair. You guys rock out together.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, we've been tight for
I'd like
a
to
while.
get her on the show sometime, actually.
Oh, yeah, you should. She has a jewelry line that she does, and she's really interesting. She had another band, too.
We're connected. We don't really know it. We're friends on Facebook. We don't know each other very well. We say hi to each other, but maybe she's listening to the show right now.
Maybe. Maybe.
And she's going to say, yeah, I'll go on the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast.
She had another band called, she was in a band with Nick called Stu Walker. And then she was also in an all-girl rock band called Stroke Volume.
Wow.
Which I don't think they made a record, but they played a few shows and stuff.
Well, I love all-girl bands.
Yeah, it's cool.
I love all bands, really. Okay, so now we're going to get on to an interesting topic. Okay, I wish that this show was on video because Duncan has 4 books open in front of him.
And my Kindle.
And his Kindle. Why don't you just before you tell us what all those books are, we're going to talk about Black Flag right now because and primarily the 1982 demos, which may very well be some of the best hardcore / metal recordings ever made from possibly the consummate Black Flag lineup. So what are these books that you have in front of you?
All right, so
you're using for reference?
I recently just finished reading this book called Spray Paint the Walls, which is all about Black Flag, and it's written by this British guy. Can I find his name? Let me see if I can find his name real quick.
Spray Paint the Walls?
Steve Chick? Is that how you say his name? My eyes are going. Anyway. Chic. Anyway, so Spray Paint the Walls is a song on Damaged by Black Flag.
Okay.
The other books I have out here, I got a book called Fucked Up and Photocopied that I'm pretty sure
That's the name of the book? Fucked Up and Photocopied?
Yeah, it's an art book of punk rock flyers.
Wow.
And then
love that.
My uncle Dan, I'm pretty sure, gave this to me.
Nice.
And then there's the Encyclopedia of Punk on the Black Flag page.
Okay, I love that book too.
And then this is a great book that my
brother
brother
got me.
Tried to steal
that one from you a few times, but I can't get it.
This book is called We Got Power, which used to be a zine, a fanzine in Southern California.
Remember it well.
By David Markey and Jordan Schwartz. Yeah.
Yep, Jordan Schwartz, well-known dude.
So it's all a lot of great photos and essays and stuff. And then the best one, the creme de la creme, is a first pressing hard copy of Get in the Van by Mr. Henry Rollins.
Which
signed by Mr. Henry Rollins.
Which
says,
is the
Thanks
impetus,
for reading this.
Which was the impetus, by the way, for every band I ever managed when they pissed me off. Shut up and get in the van was my line that I used to like to use. Thank you, Henry.
Yeah. So, and Get in the Van is a really special book for me because I read it when I was 18, on the summer between high school and Mass Art. And it really...
What year was that?
So that's the summer of 1995. It's kind of when it came out.
So you never got to see Black Flag?
Not the real Black... Well, I saw Greg Ginn... I saw the Greg Ginn Black Flag with Ron Reyes singing.
Oh,
and a kind of a not tight rhythm section, in my opinion. At the Middle East Down.
Well,
there's a lot of theremin.
Anyone to like Dukowski and
Chuck Biscuits,
any one of them,
or Robbo, or Bill Stevenson.
Bill Stevenson, one of my favorites.
I did see Flag at the Paradise.
That must have been incredible.
Which was off the hook.
Keith Morris.
I was, it was, jaw on the floor good.
So it was Keith, Bill, Dez, Chuck.
And playing the part of Greg Ginn was Steve Edgerton from The Descendants and all.
One thing you and I definitely have in common.
He was so good too.
Yeah, we have we love The Descendants, man.
Yeah.
We went off on them last time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question about them later, but so
hope I know it.
You know it. You have the answer for everything, and you'll correct me when I don't have it right, This guy, Duncan Wilder-Johnson, is like he knows everything. He's one of my favorites. See, I'm a geek when it comes to like music history, and I want to know everything, and sometimes I think I do. And then Duncan comes along and like, no, you were wrong about that year. It was 1981, not 82. So I have to be very careful. So what about the demos, the 1982 demos? What makes that record so special?
Well, first of all,
those recordings, I should say.
I think it's probably special because it was never fully released. It's only like a tape trading thing. You can check it out on YouTube, but SST never put it out. Nobody else ever put it out. So it's really just a bootlegged thing.
I got my copy from Al Quint, of course.
Cool.
He sent me all the MP3s.
So there are versions of the song of many of the songs that that made it onto My War and to Slip It In, but
including those two
different
songs.
Versions. Yeah.
Right.
And
is it Biscuits that really gives it? Chuck Biscuits that gives it?
I think it's Biscuits, but I also think there's sort of a little bit like we just need to get this down, and so it comes off a little bit more raw. It's rawer than Damaged, and it's rawer than My War or Slip It In. But Henry's delivery on it is, I think, some of the most, gut-wrenching, cathartic stuff that he's ever done. So I think that has a lot to do with it too. But there's also like there's all these interesting little sort of quirky, trivial things about it. So first of all, they went on this in 1980, I think towards the end of 81. They went on their first UK tour, and it was abysmal. It was horrible. Ian Mackay from Minor Threat, Fugazi, Discord Records went along with them because Ian and Henry grew up together. They're best friends.
DC, yeah.
So
Henry Garfield.
So they go over there, and it's just other bands are rude to them, especially this band Chelsea.
They're a big English punk band.
Yeah, they meet the main guy from Sham 69, and he's not very nice to them, and they're crashing on the floor of these young girls, and they're kind of wearing out their welcome, and they're barely eating, and it's and then when they leave, Ian leaves way early and gets on the seat and is fine, but the rest of the band, it's like a last minute thing. They had to hold the plane for them. They're just having a bad time.
It was a disaster,
right? They come back from England, and Robbo, the drummer, who's Colombian, gets deported. That's the first thing. So then they get this kid Emil Johnson to play, and so he's playing locally. I don't think he just doesn't last too long because Black Flag is a very hard band to be in. Play all the time, practice at 8 a.m., no food, barely any gas, vans breaking down, cops beating up, the band and the audience beating up the lead singer. It's not fun. So in the middle of the tour, I think Emil just kind of went, fuck this, and they get DOA's drummer, Chuck Biscuits. Later on in life, Chuck Biscuits goes on to play with the Circle Jerks. He plays with Danzig for the first 3 Danzig records.
Megadeth too, right?
I don't know if he played in Megadeth. Megadeth is one of those bands that had, like Public Image Limited, they had 30 members, So
I'll look that up while you're talking.
So meanwhile, they do this deal with Unicorn Records. Which I believe is a subsidiary of MCA. I'm not positive about that. And they're working with this woman named Daphne, and she's distributing the Damaged record, and they are paying rent to Daphne and Unicorn Records. They are sleeping on the floor at Unicorn Records, and eventually things go really sour. Some suit listens to the record and he's just flabbergasted by the record, and he makes them slap a sticker on the back of all the records that says, "As a parent, I found it a very anti-parent record," of which I have a copy of Damaged that says that, and so they basically get stuck, and they end up getting sued. So they get sued by Unicorn Records. They're not allowed to record anything or release anything. They release something that's called "Everything Went Black." It does not say Black Flag on it originally. That's what they get sued for. They put out this thing it's basically all the other singers, different versions of songs, demos. It's like a B-sides record. So they're just trying to make some money to eat, basically. Unicorn finds out about this. They sues the band. Greg Ginn has to go to jail for like 5 days or something because he's in contempt of court because they do this, and he wouldn't. Henry says he didn't talk much about it. He just said practices at 7, and they just went back at it. Now, so at this point, the band is Rollins on vocals, Greg Ginn on guitar, Chuck Dukowski on bass. Des Cadena moved on to guitar. He had moved from vocals, and Chuck Biscuits on drums. And they want to just get down all the stuff that they're working on because they can't record it for real. So they make this thing, which now is known as the 1982 demos. And 82 is brutal. It's every year in Black Flag it seems like it was a brutal one, but this was exceptionally brutal. Let
me just correct myself real quick while you're doing that. Chuck
Okay.
Biscuits did not play with Megadeth. I have the list of all the bands here: Danzig, Social D, DOA, Circle Jerk, Sam Hain, Black Flag, Subhumans, Weirdos, Fear, the Four Horsemen, the Nig Heist. I can't believe
I know the Nig
Heist.
I know the guy from the Nig Heist. I'll tell you that story in a minute.
I can't believe he actually played them. And then there's 3 bands on here I've never heard of: Floor Lords, Brown Sound, and Victorian Pork. I don't know why he played in Megadeth. I'm starting rumors here that are not true. But
do you know what he's doing now? I haven't heard anything from him since Danzig.
Page. It doesn't really say much personal stuff about him on here. He played on a lot of records, though. A lot. I'm looking at the list of albums he played on. He actually played drums on a Run DMC record. Did you know that?
No.
Played drums. But DOA, obviously, is his longest. He did a live on Broadway, on the Broadway live album. A Black Flag? What? I mean, is this? I don't know about this.
It must be a bootleg.
Record.
I don't know about that record either.
It's a live album by the hardcore punk band Black Flag. The album features 2 separate live performances from the band performing at the Broadway July 23rd and 24th, 1982. It's the only official Black Flag release to feature Chuck Biscuit. It's on a label called CD Presents. I got to find that. You should see the track listing. Wow.
That's
the first I've heard about that. Ginn, Cadena, Dukowski, and Biscuits. It's on Wikipedia.
So that's the only other thing.
Yep.
This is the first I've heard of that. So these demos and that. Wow.
It came out in 2010, and it was recorded in 1982, right when they were doing all the demos. But go ahead.
Touring their faces off. So all right. So I'm going to read this one quick thing from Get in the Van that is written kind of after the fact. So the way that Henry writes this, it's mainly his journals from when he was in Black Flag.
Okay.
However, the very first couple of years, he just basically had a list of what the shows were, and he just kind of recollected after the fact. So this is one of those. Mm-hmm. So this is from September of 1982. It says, "The next few days sucked. Our van broke down somewhere in Canada. We camped out in a gas station waiting for it to get fixed. The attendants must have thought we were crazy. We slept in the van and hung out in the parking lot for close to 3 days. My knee was fucked up and I couldn't go anywhere. The record company, which we were dealing with at the time, which would be Unicorn, eventually sent us some money and we managed to sell our van and buy another used one. We rented a U-Haul trailer to put the back line into. We set out for L.A. It was good in the back of the van. There was room for everyone. We had never had so much room. It was cool until we hit Des Moines. It was raining in sheets like some movie scene. I was looking out the back at the gray sky and all the rain. All of a sudden, the U-Haul became smaller and smaller. The trailer did a spectacular flip over the railing, flew through the air, and disappeared. It nearly took out a car on its way. We pulled over and backed up. The damn thing was way down in a ditch, partially submerged in water. My knee made it impossible for me to do anything. The rest of the guys slid down the grassy bank and opened up the little doors at the back and started to pull the cabs out. They tried to drag them up, but slid back down.
Oh my God.
All the while, the rain was relentless. Some of the cabs were too damaged, so we left them. We left the U-Haul down there as well. We loaded all the wet gear into the van and went to some roadside place. We called U-Haul and told them that it was their shitty hitch had cost them a trailer, and we gave them the approximate location of the thing, and that was that. The van we took on the tour and ditched in Canada didn't belong to us. It belonged to Saccharine Trust, and they had lent it to us. We had some pretty bad news for them when we got back to L.A. a few days later. Another tour over, I had surgery to my knee.
Wow.
And that's just like Wednesday.
They lost all their equipment plus they lost Saccharine Trust as friends in the same process.
I think they let it go after a while.
God. Wow. Well, thank you for reading that. That was beautiful.
Ooh.
Wow. So, all right. I want to ask you one other question here. We could talk about this all day. If you had to choose between the Descendants and Black Flag, who would you say is your favorite band? That's a lot of pressure.
Black Flag.
Black Flag, really?
Yeah, I heard Black Flag earlier. It stuck in my brain at 14 or whatever. You know, I heard Descendants much later. It's one of those sort of brain development things. You hear that stuff when you're at that age and it sticks with you forever. It's like why Lemmy always was like, I like Little Richard. You know, it's like that's the thing.
And you take Rollins over Morris and Dez and Ron Reyes.
No, I think so. I think I'm a big Henry Rollins nut. However, I think Keith Morris is my favorite.
Nice
vocalist for Black Flag. I love Off too. If you ever heard Off, his band that was around in the early part of the 21st century, and it very much was like early Black Flag, you know.
I got to see the Circle Jerks twice in 1984 when I moved to L.A. And one of the shows was at the L.A. street scene. They used to close all the streets down in L.A. and have stages all over the place, and thousands of people would show up. And they played with the Minutemen in Fear and Fishbone. They were on the same stage. And during...
So this is like 84?
84.
Wow.
84, maybe 85. I think it was 84. It could have been early 85 because, you know, there's no winter out there. So it could have been in the middle of the winter. But the one thing I'll never forget is out of nowhere, this skinhead gang shows up and they bully their way through the crowd, and you can actually see them. I was on the side of the stage watching, and you could see the skinheads coming to the front. And no lie, during Wild in the Streets, a complete riot broke out. There were people throwing bottles from a parking garage. You had to literally... Cops showed up on horses. It was insane. It's famous.
Man.
I mean, look it up. I was at that show. And
so wait a minute, were the Circle Jerks the headliner?
I think Fishbone played after the Circle Jerks. I think it was the Minutemen, Fear, Circle Jerks, Fishbone. I could be a little wrong about that. There was only 35 years ago. I'm trying my best to remember it. I was very young at the time.
I love Fishbone too.
Yeah, but I was a huge Minutemen fan at the time.
Me too.
I appreciated the Circle Jerks and thought they were great, but when you saw the Minutemen play,
I never saw the Minutemen.
Nothing like them. They were just like... They were so good.
I saw Mike Watt and the Missing Men at TT's, and they played a ton of Minutemen songs.
This ain't no picnic.
Yeah, they played that. They played Toadies Stuck. They played all that stuff. Yeah,
I didn't get to L.A., unfortunately, until January 1984. I did get to see the whole glam rock explosion, but the punk scene was kind of coming to an end at that time. I did see SSD.
That version of it.
Yeah, I saw SSD's last show at the Olympic Auditorium when they opened for Suicidal. The Minutemen were on that show, too. The opening band, by the way, was Duncan showing me his SSD mask. I'm sure Al
that I got today.
Al Baril will be very happy to hear us talking about that. The SSD played with, it was the Circle Jerks, the Minutemen, I can't remember the other band, SSD, and Suicidal. And there were like 3,000 people there. And
where was it? The Starwood?
Olympic Auditorium. And SSD pulled their Aerosmith trip that show, and I thought it was the ballsiest thing I ever saw. They came out and played straight ahead rock for a hardcore crowd with Suicidal's fans. It was absolutely insane. I talk about that in the Straight Edge movie that came out.
How was the crowd?
The crowd was kind of stunned.
Really?
Everyone was stunned.
Like,
I was stunned.
How dare they play mid-tempo? Like that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was like Springer came out and he had a headband on and a hat. It was so weird. I was like, I waited to see. I never saw SSD Control. It's the only time I ever saw them, and it was that show. But you know what? No one's going to go up to Al Baril and tell him anything anyways, because he could kick anyone's ass, you know?
Fair enough.
They somehow got out of L.A. in one piece. But thank you for joining us here at the last minute. And, of course, I want you to come back again because no one comes prepared better than you do with all your books and everything. And I did my best to stay away from any fake facts that I could have thrown out there so you didn't have to correct me. So we survived. Inside joke between us. We survived. But thank you. And you're always welcome to come on.
Thanks, man. This was fun.
The Blowing Smoke
I love
Twisted
talking
Rico
about
podcast.
This band. They're one of the hardest working bands that took the most grief out of from anybody I've ever heard play music. Everybody, like they were loved and they were feared and hated. They were hated by the police. They were hated by some of their audience. Henry got his ass kicked nightly.
There's a lot of video footage of that, of him getting in fights as well on YouTube.
And the thing that was really inspiring to me, especially after reading Get in the Van, was that they were so committed to making art that they would not be stopped.
Black Flag.
So cool.
Legends. Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you.
It's really important that we continue to support the mom and pop and independent stores. And I know I say this every show, but it's really important. People like JLS Design and Baby Loves Tacos in Pittsburgh and the Moonbeam Cafe in Oakmont, PA, which we mentioned. The Dark Horse Pub right here. Anna's Taqueria in the Boston area. The Record Archive in Rochester, and many independent mom and pop stores around the country. These fine establishments need us now more than ever as we make our way through these very difficult times, which don't seem to be getting much better. So please, whether it can be takeout food, ordering merch, or buying your favorite metal band's newest release, keep these small businesses in mind. I want to thank Nick Z, our engineer, and also our patrons whose monthly contributions keep the Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico podcast going. We actually have a new patron this week, Susan. Thank you, Susan, along with all the other patrons. I'll name them. What the heck? Kevin, Ellie, Maria, Chris W., Heather, Sue K., Matt, Dave, Brian, Benjamin, Lee, Chad, Christopher, Kim, Hector, and Kelly. Thank you all for supporting the podcast. If you want to support the podcast, just head over to patreon.com/Twisted Rico, and you'll help me pay for this podcast. The bill's getting bigger by the weeks. But please contact me at twistedrico@gmail.com or follow the Instagram page at Twisted Rico, or on Twitter at Blowing Smoke BS. There's also a Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico Facebook page, and you can find many of these shows on YouTube as well. This is Blowing Smoke with Twisted Rico. I'm your host, Steve Ricardo. Till the next time we say goodbye, keep the rock and roll alive. We love you, Busy Phillips.